Hello and welcome to Xena Warrior Podcast. My name is Vera and I'm joined as always by my two wonderful co-hosts, Katie.
Hi.
And Livy.
Hello.
And today we are moving on through season 2 and we got 203, the giant killer, and 204, girls just want to have fun.
Yes, this episode snuck up on me. I didn't remember that it was so soon in either season 2 or just generally. So I kind of feel like I wish that I had known it was coming up because I wanted to do so much more research. But it's okay.
We're good.
We're good.
We're very fully researched.
We're
We want
good.
to reassure you guys.
Yeah.
We know what we're going to talk about this week for sure.
Yeah, maybe you guys do. All right. Well, all I know is that it aired on Halloween or around Halloween, so it had a purpose.
Good.
It had a
Who
purpose.
would have thought?
Oh, phew.
Well, all right. So, I thought these episodes were kind of
Throwaways.
well, it's certainly giant killer.
Right.
For sure.
Girls just want to have fun. It's special in its own right.
Yes,
In its
yeah.
own way.
Right.
I would not call it a throwaway.
I want to consign giant killer to the nearest giant graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Giant trash pile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a nice giant trash
I
pile.
mean, for me, this is one of those ones where you watch it and you're like, I'm watching this, and then you're like, here is a good case for a 12-episode season of TV. Yeah.
Well, it also felt really season 1.
Yeah, it did.
And that's its problem.
But it is
Big
only
time.
episode 3 of season 2, so we're
Right.
still
Yeah.
transitioning.
Yeah.
But season 2 did start on all
That's probably why it's such a, kind of
cylinders.
hurdle here, because you just had such massively good, juicy episodes.
And episodes that were really propelling the show into
Yeah.
this new phase of storytelling, whereas this is such a retrograde
Right.
vision of what Xena is.
Yeah, and not to mention that next week is, again, we're back to Return of Callisto,
Right.
so hence...
Was it in any way a holdover from season 1? Was that in any of the notes for...
Not that I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a season 2 episode, but yeah, it's written by Terrence Winter.
Good old Terry.
Kind of getting ahead of you, Vera. You like to usually
Yeah.
announce that, but he wrote Cradle of Hope
Yeah.
from season 1, and this feels pretty similar in tone to Cradle of Hope, I would say.
Xena maybe is not Terrence Winter's...
Forte.
It's
Forte.
so crazy
Terrence
how bad his
He might
episodes
have
are.
a forte that's not related to Xena Warrior Princess.
Boardwalk Empire already.
Yeah, and so this Giant Killer is also directed by Gary Jones, who I keep thinking of as the actor from Stargate SG-1, who pushed the buttons to move the Stargate. But
Is he?
It is not.
He's the second unit director on Xena in the first season, and then his first episode that he got to be full director on was Greater Good.
Whoa.
So this is
He did a good job.
He did. He did a great job
Yeah.
on Greater Good. It is a very well-directed episode. This is less well-directed, but it's not his fault. Everything about this episode is just a misfire from the get-go.
It's just a little slow, and it's just kind of there. I don't have anything. I feel like I don't have anything horrible to say about it. I don't have anything.
It's no
great
Death
to say about
Mask.
it. Right?
Yeah.
Which,
Oh God.
But Death Mask, it was obviously quite terrible, and we went on at length about that.
Yeah.
But in ways where you could see the reasons why it could have been really good, and where it went wrong. This one is just
Well, this episode could never have been good. Even if you had, I think, if you had Steve Sears writing this episode, it would still basically be this very faithful biblical adaptation about Xena's not very convincing friendship with a giant.
Right.
It's kind of thwarted from the beginning. There's nothing in this that's really going to feel juicy and personal.
So I'm going to shock you guys.
Oh my God.
I didn't really mind it upon rewatch. As much.
Get out of here! Get out!
I'm going to clarify that it is not a good episode. And when you think of Xena, you're like, that's definitely a throwaway. I didn't really mind the conflict. I did like that she was friends with Goliath. Not that their friendship was convincing entirely, but the fact that on paper, the conflict of this episode is interesting, where she's protecting the Israelites, but her friend is on the opposite side.
And it's true that
always good.
Interestingly, this exact same conflict is in Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Xena's friendship ties versus her knowing she has to defend what's right. Gabrielle versus the Bacchae. Goliath is no Gabrielle.
No, but I think partially why I don't quite like that both of these came at the same time, and I'm jumping ahead because you just brought it up, but that whole thing where both of these episodes have 10 years ago, Xena was friends with this guy and caused that guy's family to be killed.
Right.
And that's kind of like back to back a little bit of a problem.
It's so funny how, remember in Hercules, Xena was like, I never kill women and children. And I think almost every episode
You know who
kills
kills women and children? Her Lieutenant Darfus, who plays Orpheus.
Darfus.
That's the same guy.
Well, this
I
was
know.
both indirect. She didn't kill them herself, literally.
That's such a...
We already discussed this.
It's the good old indirect.
Listen, her men set Callisto's village on fire. We discussed this. Case closed.
She didn't inhale, okay? She was around the drugs, but she did not take the drugs.
Okay.
She definitely took some drugs. For sure.
You know who took some drugs? TJ Scott making this episode.
But we're not talking about that one yet.
Sorry,
We're talking about the more boring one right before it. Oh, also one more thing. Sorry, Katie.
No,
you can't quite throw away the giant killer, which I literally tried to do for bidding purposes.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the fact that it has a really important Gabrielle Xena moment with the thunder and the hand holding.
Yes.
And that's kind of crucial.
I really
and not to be forgotten.
I really loved that moment where Gabrielle comes out and sees Xena standing by those windows brooding and says, thunder keeping you up? Which is, absurd. Why is Xena afraid of thunder? Come on, Gabrielle.
Well, nothing keeps Gabrielle up.
Nothing keeps Gabrielle up. But then Xena says, no, I'm just thinking about 10 years ago. And I'm like, I know, Xena, I've kept up so many nights thinking about what you were doing 10 years ago.
Oh my God. Yeah, as well. Wow, so we just jumped right there.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the best part, though.
It is the best part. And obviously this episode, to me, speaks greatly, or reminds me of Altered States, because that's the other super Old Testament-based episode. Although Terry Winter did not rewatch that one because of that line where the Israelites were like, the people of Abraham were like, no, his name was Antiochus.
Yeah, what's up with that? Way to muddy up the continuity.
Yeah.
So now are we supposed to think that there's actually kind of a separate monotheistic tribe led by somebody named Antiochus who had this like Icus thing? Like those weren't the Jews.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. All right.
Xena does what it wants, you guys. That's part of its charm.
Yeah. I mean, I love exactly that ethos that Xena does what it wants, and I think what's so frustrating about Giant Killer is it's just too faithful. It's not taking enough liberties with the source material. Basically, the only change it makes is that Xena is friends with Goliath, which, Vera, you're right, could have been a really interesting revisionist take, making a really sympathetic Goliath.
I liked him. Like, I don't mind him, again, paper-based. I like that he works with an army and he gets paid for it. I think that's
wrote
cool.
down Goliath is a freelancer and the freelance life sucks. I think that's the moral of this episode, is that if you work freelance, you're expendable.
Ooh, his LinkedIn is like professional giant. I thought that was cool. And, it was cool that they met in this big giant graveyard full of big old bones and
evocative
stuff.
set.
Like, at the same time, it really is getting to be kind of silly that any excuses Xena did this shit 10 years ago. Like, the fact that she fought giants, like, that's weird.
She did something every day.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
she did.
360 whatever days ever.
And it's also like, the story here is that she was injured in battle against Gareth the Giant, and
Seriously
Goliath
injured.
tended to her, which is the exact same story as from Royal Couple of Thieves, where the Israelites cared for an injured Xena at the cost of their own people.
Interesting, and not to mention Altered States when she brings up the cave that she used, and then here's another cave.
Like, maybe it's not that just 1 year. Like, it is a catch-all for a significant amount of time ago. I don't necessarily remember exactly what year it was.
It was just all a blur to her, so
Exactly.
she just pinpoints it as 10 years ago.
Right.
What did you guys think of that moment where Gabrielle talks to herself?
I liked that it's called out by the goons.
Yeah.
The Philistine goons who come up and are just like, ha ha, you're talking to yourself.
Dagon, right? Wasn't that already a name? I feel like that's
we've had
familiar.
Dagnan and
maybe.
Darfus.
No, I was probably thinking
and
of
Draco.
No.
Xena hates
Dagnan.
D names.
She
Xena
hates
the D. Yeah.
Unless it's Barias's. Not yet, too soon. Okay. Yeah, so that was cool. And then so she meets David in that scene.
Right. This was a very season 1 feel where you had that explicit boyfriend of the week come in, but then they kind of do a fun thing with it.
Not only that, but it was the first time that Gabrielle was kind of pursuing the boyfriend of the week.
That's true.
That's
I hadn't
never
thought about
happened
that.
before.
Yeah, either it's mutual or not
Yeah.
requited on her part.
She's like after that D.
But I mean, like, he wrote such beautiful songs.
Well, she only found that out later. Yeah. So they were very similar. They had the same kind of hair. Ooh, how do you describe that? You know, it's like halfway up. His was a little braid, and obviously she has bangs, but it's the same coloring.
I didn't know what you were talking about for a second. He and Gabrielle have the same
They literally
hair,
looked the same a little bit. I mean, obviously, again, she has bangs. Okay, he does not. But then they also fought with a staff, so he, like, upholds her technique, so she's clearly attracted to that.
Even his slingshot feels sort of like a non-violent person's weapon. It's a boy's weapon.
Yeah. And then later she finds out that he also writes. So she's like, "You're perfect.
He's so soulful.
Would you like some soup?"
But is it weird to have David of the Bible, King of Jews,
Gabs?
as a boyfriend of the week? Is it
weird?
I guess it's not weird. We get a lot of pretty high-profile boyfriends of the week. They haven't really appeared yet, but they're coming. The greatest thing about this plot, which I think you were about to get to, Katie, is that David friend-zones her.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he even had a clue he was leading her on. Well, maybe he did. Does he say he does? You know, he does, right? He kind of apologizes
he sort of
later.
Apologizes.
Yeah, but there's that part later where Sarah comes in, all like, "Oh, here's my fiance."
Yeah,
and
he's like, "I should have led with that."
I love how Gabs just walks away like, "Stupid idiot, like,
dumb."
Yeah. Like, and then
herself
immediately like calls for Xena, being like, maybe she wanted to go talk about her dumb heterosexual moment.
Yeah, for reals. What did you guys think of David and his psalms? Obviously, it's from the actual Bible, so they had to include it. But I thought he was kind of a little bit of like a dick about it.
Oh yeah,
he was like, because he was like, I write these psalms, and I want people to hear them. So
I thought it was the opposite. They're private. They're just for him, and Gabrielle convinces him that you need to share them.
Yeah,
right. But then he says, "Oh, they need an audience."
Yeah,
because like, what's the point of writing
That's what he learned from Gabrielle.
Yeah, but I mean, he learned that in like 2 seconds. Clearly, he just needed somebody to push him like a little bit.
Of course, dude. Every great artist just needs somebody to be like, you need an audience. Sell tickets. Monetize that shit. But yeah, what do we think of the actual decision to have Psalm 23 just read out in full for a minute of Xena Warrior Princess's screen time?
It mildly felt to me like, we're going to do this one because everyone will recognize this.
And yeah, it's a way of showing how great and genius David is.
Right.
That he is the author of this famous piece of writing.
Which makes me wish that there was more of Gabrielle's work featured in the show. Like, not just like little snippets. I know there are some. I wanted more. I wanted like a big moment like that. I was like, I bet Gabrielle writes equally beautiful things. And I know she does, because there was that one about the pain of Gabrielle and I forget the rest of it. It was so good.
I really still like when they make jokes about her being a bad writer.
Oh.
Well, my headcanon for that is that it's the first draft.
She's good, though.
We hear the first draft.
We discussed
it sucks, but we know they're better later.
Yeah.
I really like that moment when Gabrielle steals the bread, like silently.
Oh, yeah. It was like apples and stuff.
Yeah, bread and apples for everybody.
And I feel like Xena knew she was doing that, right?
Yeah. They share a significant look as that's happening.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a play on the fact that Dagon referred to the Israelites as thieves. So it's neat that Gabrielle becomes a thief in order to feed the captured Israelites.
That scene was like pretty good, I feel. There was the whole speech about, no man or woman works for me against their will or whatever. Meanwhile, you had that servant and the guy, like, what does he do? I feel like
he's like, you can go.
Yeah, he like dismisses or shoos her away. Yeah, exactly. It was. I don't know. That scene was working for me.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
There was some nice subtlety there.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, it was okay. Maybe it wasn't like subtle, but
I took note of that because this is a little bit of a stretch because this episode sucks. But it reminded me of Michelle McLaren's Game of Thrones episodes. With Bern Gorman,
Beyond the Wall, right?
Yeah, Craster's women, and she would make sure to show.
Yeah, there was always a reaction shot. There are all sorts of horrible, violent things going on, but she would always feature like a woman's face in the background or something up close, reacting to everything that was going on. You always got that perspective with her, which is why we need more female directors.
She directed those, right? No,
yeah, Michelle McLaren.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. No. Because we screamed about it for like a month. Yeah.
And, there's just such a tendency when you have, brothel workers or serving girls to treat them like props, like set dressing. And it is really nice when those people get to have agency, when you feel like those are characters who are actually, like, experiencing the world.
Yeah, so the conflict is that the Philistines captured the Israelites. David and company are in jail, and Gabrielle is stealing food for them. And they were in jail for stealing game and just like stuff from the Philistine land.
Well, it really just seems to come down to some kind of territorial conflict. The Israelites live there, and they need to feed themselves. They need to hunt. They don't want to be dependent on the Philistines. So they're doing what people do, which is hunting for their food. And the Philistines are like, you can't do that. That's the essential conflict. But yeah, the Dagon spins it as them stealing from the army. I actually, I shouldn't say really liked, but I enjoyed the slow reveal of the situation, which is first you have Goliath saying, I'm working for an army that's fighting off some thieves. And when you hear it spoken of like that, you say, oh yeah, well that seems reasonable. You're doing a good thing, Goliath. That's nice. Good work. And then you see that they're the Philistines and that there are these Israelites, and you understand what that conflict is because you have a passing knowledge of the biblical story it's based on. And I thought that was kind of nice that eventually, like, it rings a bell and you're like, oh,
but see, that's what I mean. I liked that conflict. In the sense that I don't love this episode at all, but like that, I didn't. It is interesting. It's
in a way, I feel like we've talked about this in a way that makes it another Death Mask, where now that we've sold it, I can see maybe a more interesting story based on this material. It's obviously very rich. It's a powerful story in the Bible.
I mean, I would never compare it to Death Mask. The only episode that you can compare it to, as mentioned, is Altered States, and both of them are kind of like throwaways.
Or Cradle of Hope a little bit, which also had a little bit of Old Testament with like the baby found in the rushes. Yeah.
Gosh, he's just really interested in that. That's his whole contribution. He's like, I'm gonna take this story from the Old Testament.
Thanks for that, Terry.
I just feel like this one was, for me, like, I wrote, you saw my notes for a second when we were watching it, and you're like, what does slow mean? And I was like, it's slow.
Giant letters, circle.
Very boring.
And so there's the idea, we were kind of talking about this when we were watching it, when you have a story that's really well known and you know the outcome, you have to do stuff to make it tense and interesting, and I don't think that this episode quite gets there, because there are millions of movies and shows that exist about real things that you know everything that's going to happen, and it's still exciting. Here's random examples, like the entirety of The People versus O.J. Simpson, something like Apollo 13. Like you know these
Kings, the show about David.
Right, that's a good example.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Like you know what's going to happen, but in this instance, it's more like you
Goliath
kind of know where this is going.
Goliath was a tank.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's not exciting getting there. So if you can take the same material and somehow make it more exciting, then it could be a good episode. So there's certainly good material.
Yeah.
It's clearly a good story.
I didn't mind it.
That's fine.
Well, we know for a fact that it was way too slow, even for the showmakers, because its entire last act was lopped off. This episode has an aborted conclusion. That little voiceover of Xena's about how great Goliath was, good man, good father, good warrior. That's to cover up the fact that they cut the entire climax of this episode for time.
Wow.
Which, I mean, says something about how bad this episode is that they were like, I know what can just be left out of this episode, the climax.
And then you said it ends up in A Day in the Life somehow?
Yeah, in an obvious way.
Yeah.
The part
Well,
of A
it's
Day in the
yeah.
Life, which is about giants,
But, like,
is from this episode.
They took the whole thing, they didn't rewrite it? They must have rewrote it.
I mean, they must have probably
way.
ADR'd sections of it to more perfectly fit into A Day in the Life.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
But, you know,
That's
you
funny.
see the setup in this episode. There's a lot of mention of Gareth the Giant, who killed Goliath's family, and Goliath wants revenge. So the entire last act of the episode would have been Xena on dead Goliath's behalf going to attack Gareth.
Wow.
I like that he never gets that.
I like it too. I
Well,
agree.
that's
It's
good.
better.
I don't know. What
It's
if I like
episode
this
is
episode?
all
I don't know.
But I mean, he never gets it because he dies anyway.
Yeah, it was a little bit tragic.
I thought
This
it was
episode's
funny
not
how
good,
like
but I liked
he's
it.
wounded and dying, and there's that little like trickle of blood out of his eye, and like Xena comes up to him, and he's struggling to hang on, and he says, "Gareth, it's still out there," and Xena's just like, "Go now, no, no more vengeance for you. Stop, let go." Just let it go, dude.
That moment reminded me, she says your war is over, which is like from The 100 when they say your fight is over. It's something the same thing. But it was nice. I like this episode.
All right. I mean, it's got its
No, I
points.
don't. I don't. It's really
there's
bad.
some good stuff in the stretch with Gabs and Boyfriend of the Week David. There's some good lines early, you know, when they're what are they trying to escape or whatever, and Gabs is like, "I know a way." Like, Xena is the way.
Xena is the way.
I liked that line a lot. Xena is the way.
I kind of like the back and forth with, she tells David that she's a bard, and he's like, can you write an escape story to get me out of here? And then later he's like, that was a good escape story.
Yeah.
I thought that was some cute flirting.
Nice.
And
He should
then-
not have been flirting with her.
No.
He has a fiance.
He's real, yeah.
So they're taking
Were they
out-
polygamists?
What?
Could David
Well,
have multiple wives?
His dad sure does.
So then they get taken outside. And who's the baddie? I'm sorry.
Dagon?
Okay. Picks David to get his head chopped off.
Because they discover that they were plotting to escape, which
Right.
is punishable by death.
So that's happening. And then Gabrielle throws herself on top of him.
Because she's like, no,
And
he's
she's
not
like,
going to
trust
do
me.
it.
He's like,
Yeah.
and he's like, all right, let me just get. She's like, what? Mistake.
Yeah.
So
It's such an awkward pose, though. Their faces are perpendicular to the ground
It looks
and kind
cute.
of pressed together.
yeah,
Yeah, and they do the shot. Then
Yeah.
Gary Jones like flips it.
I liked
the
it. And then we
camera.
were watching it. I was just like, obviously, you know they're going to be last minute chakram saved, and that
course.
happens. And I was just like, that must have been so annoying for Xena to just roll up to that and see Gabrielle about to get her head lopped off.
Yeah, like, Gabrielle, I left you here for
Like,
like
seriously?
5 minutes. And look what you do. And then they have this crazy fight where the executioner keeps getting thrown on a table full of challah.
Oh, yeah. Twice that happens. Those
Yeah.
poor hollows.
Yummy. Hey, remember how Gabrielle brings David some soup?
She loves food.
Well, okay, so she's like, I always like to eat soup after a battle or something. And it totally reminded me of that time on Buffy when Faith is like asking Buffy after she has a fight, like, doesn't she get all like hungry and horny? And Buffy's like, sometimes I crave a non-fat yogurt afterwards. So I guess Gabrielle likes soup.
It does feel like the ancient Greek equivalent of a non-fat yogurt.
Yeah.
They have Greek
Just
yogurt.
being like,
Remember Lord Fire?
Lord Fire.
I wanted to talk about the awkward switcheroo where David has to be the one who kills Goliath.
Yeah, that was definitely the narrator showing his hand. You felt like, this is how it happened in the Bible, so we'd better do it this way for a reason.
You know, but it also, like, on this show, it was kind of annoying. Like, I know Xena was like, oh, he has to be the one because the people need a new leader because his older brother was killed by Goliath because he put a wagon on him.
Right. That was such an unheroic death scene.
Which is okay.
Oh, and now that we brought up Jonathan, one of the interesting things I thought about those parallels between David and Gabrielle is that in the same way that Gabrielle is writing these scrolls about her friend Xena, David is writing about his brother.
Right.
That they both, they don't want to write about themselves. That's not their artistic impulse. They need this other figure to idolize.
Right, but who's more famous, David or Jonathan?
Well, does that mean Gabrielle's one day going to be more famous than Xena?
Well, there's no author to the Xena scrolls.
Yeah.
It's the saddest fucking
The
thing.
nameless one.
That's the thing we need to talk about later, because we'll discuss the future continuity.
Okay.
Yeah.
David has to come up and be like, I'm gonna do it, and it was a little bit annoying because he's a man.
And when you say do
on
it,
this show, Xena saves the day. Okay.
their plan is that giants have a Achilles nose,
Yeah.
and it's like they have to get it right in the nose bridge, but he's got a helmet on, so they got to get him to take the helmet off. So they're gonna like blind him so that he'll be like, ugh, and then he takes his helmet off. But the weather sucks, right? And it's like getting in their way. I liked the way Lucy Loss delivered a line to David to like pray about the weather when she was like, you might want to ask him. The way that she said him was interesting to me.
She's not used to asking people to pray to him.
Yeah,
singular.
like one dude god. Yeah. It was an interesting, like, just inflection on the word. It struck me.
Was it specific about him, like, as in the
God.
one god? Or is it specific about praying to a god in general? Because she famously doesn't really like to do it, even though she amazingly does it. Like, whenever that happens, it's amazing.
Anyway, I know that was interesting.
During that whole part, we have like a sunny day, but there's thunder. And I immediately was like, where's Carl Urban? Where's his god?
We know you're lurking, Carl.
Continuity.
So he did watch that episode. Okay.
And then it was kind of horrifying, I felt, the Goliath death scene where he was like bleeding out his eyeballs.
Yeah.
It was fairly intense looking.
It was reverse Oberyn versus the Mountain.
Somebody's head exploded?
No, but he got hit in the head and his brain exploded, I guess, in there.
I guess.
Xena is like kind of appropriately conflicted and sad about it, and thus gets a tiny little hand brush from Gabrielle.
Yes, well, combined with the thunder watching, amazing hand close-up. It's a lot of...
There was so much
hand
probing
close-up.
in that first scene with the hand holding. Like, the thunder was such fake thunder. It was just like flashy.
But it looked nice on their hands. Like, Gabrielle like takes her two hands and just grabs her.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
It's kind of important.
This episode is important to exist for that 5
just
seconds
like
only.
Altered States. We have another unforgettable moment.
Well, in these ridiculous episodes,
Yeah.
it's good to throw in something to keep us interested.
That's why every episode needs to be watched, even if it's shitty.
I do feel it's important to point out before we move on that this episode does have the theme that we've kind of been teasing is a big theme in Xena, which is this idea of vengeance as an awful thing. So having Goliath defeated because he insists on seeking vengeance for his dead family rather than just doing the right thing and helping people in need. That is going to be a key theme in Xena, and here we do see it expressed in this episode, even if it's not very good.
And I think it's important to point out that the actor who plays Goliath looks like Tom Cruise's cousin William Mapother.
What?
Oh.
Stretched to Nathan Fillion size currently.
Whoa.
You just broke my brain.
Alright, that's interesting. I kind of see it.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Oh, did you have another note?
Forget it. It ends nice. With her doing the thoughts thing. You can hear my thoughts.
Oh,
That was nice.
Sure.
It's over.
Sure, nice, fine.
Jeez. All right.
Next slide.
Slide.
Okay. Now for the good stuff.
All right.
Girls just wanna have fun.
That's all they really want.
They just
They just want to drink the blood of Bacchus, apparently.
They just want to gel back their hair.
Put on them contacts and them teeth. All right, this one's written by Adam Arness and Nora K. Fart.
Nora K. Fart. Okay. Oh, help.
Nora K. Foster. And directed by our man, TJ Scott.
Hi, TJ.
DJ!
You know within the first 2 seconds that this
Yeah.
is a TJ Scott episode because it opens with that same crazy frame rate and some crazy trees and some crazy woozy camera work, and you're just
Yeah.
like, TJ,
yeah.
are you okay?
He's on drugs, as we said. This is the trippiest TJ episode ever. So trippy drugs, shot. A man is being chased. And there's like weird POV.
To me, that looked like The Predator.
Oh,
Interesting.
right.
I was
'cause
like,
of
is the Predator
the
in this
heat.
episode?
It's like heat vision, yeah.
And even the sound design, which sounded weirdly mechanical. So I was like,
Are you talking about the fact that it's Jaxer's fucking clanging pots?
is that what that? You're right. That's exactly
It's
what that was.
Jaxer, and I thought it was really
that
annoying.
was the wolves pursuing me.
No.
Who for some reason were like,
Well, it's clearly Jaxer from his costume, but you're not supposed to know that yet.
yeah, that was a weird choice.
Yeah.
I guess they wanted you to be surprised, like pleasantly surprised.
I guess. I just hated that you can clearly tell that it's him, but the voice of the quote unquote man running was like a different voice.
Oh,
like
interesting.
Clearly wasn't, Ted being like panting and running like escaping.
Noticed that.
There were no Jaxer noises. It was, you're supposed to be in the dark at this point. That this is who it is.
Why build
I
suspense
don't know.
about this?
Because everyone's just like jonesing for the return of Jaxer.
Sure.
This is his second appearance.
It is.
Yes.
So
He
we have not
previously
seen
appeared
him in a while.
Callisto.
So technically it would have been like maybe a surprise. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for some people it is a happy surprise. I don't mind seeing Jaxer, but I just
Jaxer
didn't
fan.
understand why the withholding. To me, it felt like an unnecessary bit of trickery.
Xena and Gabrielle are talking to some guy who's just warning them that girls have been disappearing from nearby villages and kind of being like, watch out, I guess.
This is an important factoid.
Yeah. And while Xena's talking to this dude, Gabs kind of goes over and stares at some trees, and then you get like the creepo vision of the unknown POV entity looking at her.
Such a horror staple.
Yeah.
Very much the gaze, but not the female gaze.
Well, we'll get to those soon.
Actually, it technically is the female gaze.
Oh, you guys, I'm so excited to talk about this episode. I love this episode. I don't care.
I think we
don't
should
care
go,
what you say.
I think
don't
we should
care at
go
all.
back and talk about the giant killer some more.
No. Absolutely not.
Okay, so out pops Jaxer. I think this is where he attacks, or not attacks, but he like
Runs into the scene, and it's revealed that this is Jaxer and not just a random man.
yeah, but he like literally runs into Gabrielle and
Flattens her, yeah.
You get some info about how the Bacchae can turn into wolves and they like chase men.
Presumably, it's true that men can't be Bacchae,
No.
so I guess
Yeah.
this is just for funsies. They just go out and stalk men.
And they turn all the young, innocent women into wild, soulless creatures.
Yeah.
The horror! They
So-
take them to the club.
The club, yeah. So this is immediately a metaphor. Men fearing the lesbians turning their nice young prospects gay.
Absolutely. Here we go. This is the biggest trope ever. No, I mean, that's hyperbole. That's hyperbole, but this is going to be like just sprinkled throughout the whole conversation about this episode. But this is a Halloween episode. It's clearly doing horror things for Halloween. This is still pre-Buffy the show, right? But post-Buffy the movie. But I don't think anybody was really thinking about that thing.
No.
But this episode of Xena is an entry in a very, very, very long line of lesbians as vampires in horror. And I think it's a very interesting entry into a very, very, very long tradition.
Was this more thoughts to come later?
Yes, more
once we
thoughts
get-
to come.
Okay, all right. We'll put a pin in that. Put a pin in that.
But we already have, at the beginning here, little things that are part of these stories since the beginning of the kind of contemporary conception of vampires, right? The two biggest, I think, influences for the lesbian vampire trope are, number one, that book, Carmilla, by, what's his name? Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. Is it Irish? It was written in 1871. I think this is
Before
pre-Dracula.
Bram Stoker, yeah.
So, of course, there's this cool... I don't know if it's cool. I haven't read it. So, of course, there's
there's like a cool
erotic
lady thing
novella about
before,
lesbian vampires. It's pre-Dracula. And then another huge influence is Elizabeth Bathory.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the historical figure who killed, supposedly, about 650 plus.
She did it.
Yeah, young virgins and then bathed in their blood to stay young forever.
Isn't that what Lucy Lawless does on Salem?
Yes, it is. I was going to bring that up. And I was like, if you want to see some good... So witchcraft and vampirism with some of these feminist issues are big in horror. So if you want to see a fun version of a definite Elizabeth Bathory-influenced situation, please do watch all of Lucy Lawless's scenes on Salem.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch all of Salem if you don't
definitely
want to.
watch all those scenes.
Because I was not super enamored by it. But I am super enamored by Lucy Lawless in Salem, and you should totally watch it. But yeah, so at the beginning of this episode, you have them going like, oh, 3 girls have disappeared. That's 6 total. So that's like the early, Carmilla, I think, starts that way. All these girls going missing and what's happening. Ooh. And they're all being seduced.
It does seem like really important to me that the vampire originally was a woman.
Right?
The original vampire is Carmilla. It's not Dracula. This kind of
and then
alpha man.
The man version is the super famous one.
Of course. First you have a Xena, then you have a Hercules. Except
not really. Thankfully, this story has a good ending. By the way, we didn't mention, I think this episode, well, at least Whoosh was celebrating that it beat, it won the night in ratings for the action hour. Although, remember, Nothing also had higher ratings than Hercules, but
maybe didn't win the night.
They didn't really celebrate that one.
Well, winning the night is huge.
In the action hour. I don't know really what that means.
I don't really know what the action hour is, but I'm so glad Xena won it. And on this episode of all the episodes, one of
it was so sexy.
The very gayest of early Xena.
Yeah.
So that tells you a little something about...
something.
And in the language of horror, perhaps the most explicit.
Ooh.
Absolutely. It's all about transferring of bodily fluids.
Oh, boy. Okay,
Anyway.
so Jaxer brings the head of Orpheus to Xena.
I loved that situation.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. So this, in terms of the legend and myth, Orpheus has to sing and play the lyre, and it puts the Bacchae to sleep, and then you can kill Bacchus, right? Something like that.
I wonder what the mythological underpinnings of this idea that Orpheus somehow restrains the Bacchae. You would think that music, like good music, would be something that would really spur the Bacchae on because they love to party.
Yeah. I'm not sure about good music in that episode, but
true. When we
music.
finally hear Orpheus, he's like la 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 la.
Yeah.
So really, it's like lame music will always shut down a party.
From his voice, so he just has to sing anything.
Maybe like a lullaby puts them to sleep.
Right,
that would
this
be
is a sort of
cute.
interesting take on mythology, right? They've taken these followers of Dionysus, right? Mm-hmm. And then just turned them into vampires for Halloween. That's fun.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I like
great.
it.
There's I forget who wrote it, but that play, The Bacchae, where the Bacchae are. I think
that
it's
not our
Euripides?
friend Euripides?
That's my friend Euripides.
That's you.
That's me.
You wrote it.
My fave character Euripides wrote The Bacchae. I think I should
Yes.
really look this up.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Well, they are sort of satanic and villainous there. So there is classical source material that does choose to use the Bacchae in this way, though they're not actually monsters or certainly not vampires.
Well, Bacchus has cursed Orpheus. Well, I mean, somebody cursed him, and his head is now only
The Bacchae did it.
The Bacchae did it.
Because
Okay.
they love to castrate men.
Oh, right.
So his dick is gone as
As well as the rest of him.
As a
body
horror
including
thing,
his
the
dick.
Yeah.
most gigantic that fear is the big one in the horror genre.
Yeah, whenever you read any kind of Freudian theory about horror, it's all about castration.
Yeah. Well, this is the crux of kind of these tropes in horror. Robin Wood he's a huge influential film scholar, wrote this article called like American Horror in the 1970s and pointed out all these ways in which the horror genre was like Freud's Return of the Repressed, right? So any kind of social anxiety comes to some kind of fruition in a horror movie to upend the status quo or to upend patriarchal society, heteronormative society, all these things.
So the club and lesbianism,
right.
Obviously huge threats.
So like the Lesbian Vampire is huge because it serves as this male threat to like their supremacy, basically, this idea that women can be happy and fine without them. Anything that threatens male power is bad. And so this is a trope that is in some ways not the best. It was huge in the 60s and 70s, made this huge comeback with all these kind of like sexploitation films with titles like Vampiros Lesbos and things like that. Like this one French director made a whole career out of it. His name was like Jean Rollin. So all these movies are made by men and they're really like for male audiences. And they're sort of coming out at a time when, you know, it's the 60s and 70s, so the women's liberation movement is becoming a thing. You know, queer representation is becoming bigger. These are things that people are becoming aware of as maybe potentially a threat to how things are. So in these movies, you have these characters who are like these fun, sexy vampire women, but they always need to be contained at the end, which is not great.
Not great, but at the same time, I think so many of these movies, and almost all monster movies, what ends up happening is that you love the monster as an audience member. You're way more excited and having way more fun when the monster is loose. Right. And when the monster goes back in that box, you're disappointed on some level.
This is sort of like the mainstream way to kind of read those things, but there are there's so many ways that you can subvert what a lot of these things stand for by reading it in a different capacity. Like, for the longest time, I think that the Lesbian Vampire was maybe some of the only lesbian representation in cinema that was more explicit.
How depressing is that?
You know? And it's like, so people are looking to, like, these movies, right? And that's what you're getting. So I think there are ways where you can, like, subvert the meaning of stuff. I want to see more of them because I actually haven't seen a lot of them, so I want to see.
Yeah, I think the only lesbian vampire film I've seen is The Hunger.
The Hunger is fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And quite a influence
on this episode.
On this episode,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Tony
1000%.
Scott, no relation to TJ, as far as we know.
Nepotism.
But yeah, definitely stylistically, The Hunger and Girls Just Want to Have Fun have a lot in common. You know, a similar aesthetic, I would say.
Yeah.
A slightly tacky aesthetic.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about this aesthetic.
Okay.
Because what did you guys think of the hilarious kind of transitions that were throughout this episode of the Bacchae and Bacchus himself?
I thought they were cheesy and terrible and wonderful. I found them to be in the vein of weird, surreal art house horror that, like, goes along with, like, the gothic tradition where, like, vampires live, but also they're silly. But also fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, like, just a representation of the fact that evil pervades the story, right? You need to layer it on top of other things.
Part of
about
the
layering.
way this show is so subversive is that it gets super campy, and this cheesy quality is part of how it can, like, subvert some of the, like, bad ideas in these tropes, right? And I think this episode kind of does it, but in the end, so we'll see.
It definitely doesn't feel misogynistic, which is the danger,
right?
In
exactly,
exploiting these fears. Yeah, it seems really playful and loving.
Slightly a parody, almost.
Yeah,
but maybe not intentionally. But kind of, I don't know. Maybe
it was intentional.
yeah.
I definitely think the tone here is very deliberate.
Yeah.
Like that sense of camp is totally the actors and
Yeah,
TJ
and
are
it's
both
kind of
layering
so
that on.
it's so specifically doing this kind of story, you know, young innocent girl gets seduced. Like, I feel like Renée, her acting, like even from the start, she's already been entranced by it, just even by talking about the story. And then she goes like, oh, I think it's just like to scare people. But really, like, she's like, ooh, the wild soulless women. Like, she's already interested. She's like, she's compelled from the beginning.
Well, she would be. She would be the one who
Gabrielle's
was.
a simple village girl.
Right,
that
she's
just
the
wants to
innocent.
let loose. She just wants to have fun.
Exactly.
Well, she's the only gay in the village, so
Yeah,
she would definitely be
absolutely.
into this.
I love this episode.
Another thing that adds to just the parodic comedy layer is this choice to have one of the supporting characters be a talking head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the part where he's on Jaxter's lap, but it's like clearly the actor's just filming it between his legs. It's so funny.
It must have been really funny
Yeah,
to
they must have
shoot.
had such
There must have been a
hilarious
lot of
time.
laughter there. Yeah. So let's talk about that moment when it's revealed that the wolves are really women.
Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to talk about before. The crazy, like, insane amount of editing of, like, zooming in and zooming out, like, extreme camera craziness. And also, it's always, like, extra, I think, especially later at the end.
Yeah.
Well, they have to top
Yeah.
this opening one, which is already really over the top.
So the wolves become women, and one of the Bacchae is my favorite Amazon, that actress who helped showed off the staff to Gabrielle.
I knew she looked familiar.
Yeah, and she like really cannot talk with the teeth in her
Nobody
mouth.
can.
So that was really funny.
Oh, I'm laughing because I forgot that I wanted to mention how it's like so cute that Lucy Lawless has a cold.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely irrelevant to anything, but I do like to spot when actors maybe have a cold, and I do think she had a cold in this
Yeah,
episode.
it is really cute.
Anyway, continue.
Kind of fits with the infection
Oh,
theme.
Oh boy.
nice.
Bodily fluids passing.
Uh-huh.
So what did you think of the crazy reveal?
That these wolves are women who are Bacchae, who work for Bacchus, who's a giant red devil man.
He reminded me of Tim Curry in Legend.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He was definitely Buffy aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
Like 100%.
But again, 6 months before Buffy, which
Yeah,
is
of
crazy because this whole episode, not really in the art house wildness, but just in the general aesthetics of the way the vampires look, the way Bacchus looks.
the
Just
fact that they were in the bronze.
Right, they're in the bronze. Like, I think if you turn that on, you would think it was an episode of Buffy set in the
second.
bronze with,
Yeah.
like, some kind of big red demon who's, like, bewitched everybody, and it's a crossover with Xena for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so, like, something about the lighting. And,
Yeah,
it just
absolutely.
really looks like Buffy.
Makeup style, all
And
of it.
Bacchus, of course, the makeup is,
The Weta guys.
yeah.
That was good.
It's good. It's very plasticky, but that does kind of work.
Alright.
With
That's fine.
demon
Yeah.
face.
Also, I thought his performance as, Bacchus was also very Buffy. Just like really silly.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
It's like season 1, 2 Buffy.
Yeah.
Like,
So should we talk about the club or no?
oh, yes.
Oh my God,
we
the
can't not
club.
talk about the club.
What do we think of the music in the club when you first see the club?
Amazing. I loved it so much.
Okay. What is the song that's happening?
Oh my
There's a
God.
crazy song with crazy lyrics.
We have the lyrics courtesy of Whoosh. They are ridiculous and a bit gay.
Yeah.
This is when Gabrielle has wandered in to
Yeah.
that area and has kind of
Well, they have to go
Been
into
seduced.
this village because this dude Melodis stole
The liar.
the lyre. So they have to.
He,
get
he
that-
hasn't stole it. He's been given it
Oh,
to
sorry,
keep
he-
it safe.
yes, he's
he
been-
can play the liar,
Right,
hence
right,
his
right.
name, Melodis.
Sorry, excuse me. So they have to go to this village to get it from him.
Since
and
Orpheus doesn't have arms, they
Or a
need
dick.
or Dick, as previously mentioned, they need Meliodas to play the lyre for him as he sings.
But, oh no, he's been killed.
Yeah, I liked that shot that reveals his dangling legs,
Yeah.
that the Bacchae have, I guess, hanged him?
I guess. So now they're in a little bit of a conundrum that they need somebody who can play the lyre. And meanwhile, Joxer is going around talking about how he had all these like music lessons. Or he was
Well,
supposed to
his
have.
mom wanted him to have them.
Right.
And at first you think, oh, well, Joxer was too cool for that. You don't really think that. Nobody on Earth thinks that.
You can't put the word cool and Joxer in the same sentence. What?
Oh, so then there's the completely not surprising reveal
Yeah.
that Joxer's a mama's boy who took those lessons.
Of course.
I do kind of like that. I mean, they have established Joxer's family pretty well throughout the series.
Right.
That he comes from this line of warlords, fathers, I'm assuming. And his brother is also kind of a baddie, but we haven't met him yet. He has another brother.
Who also took the music lessons.
Yes, he certainly did. So I like that the mom is the one who was trying to get them not to
Don't let
be.
my babies become warlords.
Is that a real line?
It's from Mad Max.
Thanks. Okay, so how do they get into how are they in the club? And I'm not going to
It's
stop
just
saying the club.
the village square. They're having a festival.
Oh,
Like
right.
Gabrielle, like, she sees the festival, she hears some shit, and just kind of is drawn
yeah,
to
she's
it.
drawn
and
to it.
She's already
Yeah.
in the mood. She's already been, I don't know, somebody got her a little bit already.
Yeah, these beautiful lesbians beckon to her, and she's like,
Yeah.
I'll go wherever you want me to go.
Yeah.
So there's that extended sequence of her dancing with all of the Bacchae women.
Yes.
It's fabulous.
And Joxer is very concerned about
Of
this
course.
stuff immediately. He thinks everyone's a Bacchae.
His fragile masculinity is threatened.
Yeah.
Of course.
And he has Orpheus's head on this stick because they can't just bring a headless.
I did
thing.
love that he was on that little stick, and then he would just be like, whoa, whoa. Everybody was like jostling his
But my
head
favorite
around.
part was
Whoa.
when Joxer's like, hold this to some random dude.
Yeah.
And this random dude is then full on dancing with the stick with the head on it. It was really funny. He was really into it.
It's not that weird for that club. A lot of stuff goes on there.
Yeah, there are those animal masks, which whenever you see animal masks, it means either home invaders or orgy.
Of course.
Oh.
And
Absolutely.
I think we know which one it is in this
Yes.
case.
Yeah.
Home invasion. No. Orgy.
It was also a little bit getting into club undersex territory.
I was thinking it was a little bit of
just
Eyes
started.
Wide Shut.
Wow, the music was a little bit more than just one note on the piano. Ding, ding. Yeah. Oh, you wanted to read the lyrics.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
To the
here
song.
are the lyrics from the amazing song. I'm not exactly sure what language originally they're in.
It's just a rap,
It's
isn't
a
it?
Lebanese singer.
No, I think that's a different song.
Oh, that's a different song.
That's the second time we're in the club.
Oh, okay.
The first time there's a really fun rap kind of.
One of the
rap.
lines is I saw that was just a line from Batman.
Yes, there is. There is a line from Batman. Okay, I'll read you a bunch. Here it is. I want to dance with you. I want you right next to me. I want your soul, and I'll give you what you need to be. Feel the music. Sniff your hair. Sniff your hair. Am I sniffing your hair, or are you supposed to sniff your own hair?
I
What's
think,
this
yeah,
line?
I don't know, but I think those lesbians do sniff Gabs'
Sniff
hair.
Gabs' hair smells really
Beautiful.
good.
I'm sure it smells
Yeah.
good.
I'll keep you warm against the cold night air. Just one kiss is what you need right now.
Girls
just
just wanna have
one
fun.
kiss, and I will show you how.
Nice.
Just
Great.
one kiss is what you need tonight to go dancing with the devil by the pale moonlight.
That's the line from Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
That's good.
Yeah.
It's maybe not the best song, but the lyrics
I
are
loved
fun.
it. I thought it was great.
You know, again, it's about these women dancing together, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful that the
Yeah.
song itself is
Absolutely.
so explicitly about sexiness.
Totally.
Yeah.
The editor, Robert Field, had a really interesting quote about the way that he did this scene. He goes, "The two dance sequences with Gabrielle are heavily layered with dissolves on top of dissolves, one face dissolving to another face. My aim was to suggest visually the state of complete surrender that Gabrielle was experiencing with the Bacchae. She seemed under their spell."
Absolutely.
Did you guys see that?
Absolutely.
With all the layering
Yes.
of the faces.
Yeah,
Yes,
she
ma'am.
was lost in the music and kind of lost in the frame.
Amazing.
Totally.
I for sure loved the club scenes.
Yeah, and then
I really did.
the Joe LaDuca, the regular score is also very hypnotic.
Yeah.
And adds to that quality of being seduced. Totally.
Yeah, they get out of the club, and there's like, I think the beginning of the really awesome B-roll magic hour shots that are
beautiful
scattered throughout this
shots.
episode
Yes.
of them traveling. There's always like a silhouette against these insane sunrises, sunsets, whatever.
It was so beautiful, the three
Gorgeous.
of them.
Yeah.
And it was like red and blue, just like this magical dusk shot. Oh, totally atmospheric, lovely transition moment.
This is when Joxer sees blood on Xena's neck.
Oh, you know what? No, because I skipped over the part where the Bacchanalia ladies are attacked by like gross guys who are trying to like rape them.
Which again felt a bit like Darla's intro in
Yes.
Buffy, where you have women who you think are going to be the victims of a scene who instead turn it around and become the sexual aggressors. And of course that is so connected to everything you've been saying, Katie, about the fear of female sexuality.
That is the open of Buffy that is so lauded by everyone. That is this. That was just happened. Wow. Damn. All right.
Well, Xena fights them, and there's a lot of crazy flying ladies, flying Bacchanalia.
Yeah, they're flying.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because Xena, loves to defy gravity, but she can't quite compete with these flying Bacchanalia ladies.
I mean, she can almost fly.
She basically competes, though. She kicks them around a bit.
And after this fight, Joxer notices that she has some blood on her neck, which she doesn't clean up at all, ever. Just leaves it there.
And I love that he warns Gabrielle about this, and then is like, anything you say is going to propel her into a Bacchian frenzy.
Oh, yeah! Which kind of reminded me of Hysteria, which is, the concept was put on women by men.
Yeah.
And it's ancient Greek, right? The
word is,
word
for
is,
sure, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Clearly Bacchanalia frenzy.
Yeah.
That's what started it all.
Women be crazy.
Yeah, bitches be cray.
Well, yeah, he suggests that they start sharpening Gabrielle's staff into a stake.
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
And then you have this really great sequence by the campfire where Joxer is watching Xena really closely, looking for any signs of Bacchanalia behavior. Bacchanalia behavior.
Yeah, and this is actually an interesting scene. I mean, I already mentioned how I kind of don't like that it's 2 episodes in a row where Xena caused the death of, a guest star's family.
Yeah.
But I really like that Orpheus is just super pissed about his wife being killed because of Xena. And Xena just, is so mad about it. She throws the knife. Again, we're supposed to be concerned that she's Bacchanaing, but she's not.
Spoiler alert.
And it's a really cool reaction. She is just mad that he's so mad at her and won't forgive her.
And in this instance, she didn't kill her. So
we don't really know the full
sorry
story.
about
Eurydice came to the camp. She seems to have been a friend of Xena, or at least attempting to befriend Xena.
Yeah, she wanted to be friends.
It sounds like it could be kind of gay. We don't exactly. What was she doing there? What was she doing there? We don't know. She came in the night because she's a friend of Xena's.
Oh, boy.
Got caught in the crossfire.
So many secrets from Gabrielle.
Friend of Xena's sounds like a code, like an old code.
Wait a second.
A Hays code,
wait a
way
second.
of describing a lesbian.
But Goliath is also her friend.
Well.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
It's a big deal.
Like a phrase. Like a Hays code phrase.
Yeah, it does.
Anyway.
It's funny, I mean, we'll get to this later, but that's how Bacchus refers to Gabrielle.
Friend of Xena!
He says, friend of Xena, drink of this blood and be immortal with me forever. And I was like, Gabrielle, do not be immortal with anyone who can't even bother to know your name. Yeah. That is not a cool person to know.
The campfire scene continues into a really, really great moment with Joxer, because he's like, well, I'm telling you, no one's going to be sleeping soundly tonight. And then cut to, he's snoring away. Of course. He has this little dagger that we last saw in the Callisto episode. And Xena's creeping up behind him. And then she has a knife and stabs. And he's like, oh no! And then
you think it's his back.
Yeah.
You hear this crunching sound.
Yeah, it's a gross crunching sound. Oh my God. And it's revealed that she has killed this giant spider. And as she says, spider. Sand spider.
She looks so gleeful about it. She loves creeping up on spiders in the night.
So that was like a great shot. Then there's another great shot of her like looming over
It's the same
him.
shot.
Yeah, she gets up and then
And
them thighs.
Like that was my note. I wrote powerful thighs.
Yep.
It's a great shot.
Yeah, really. And just really inventive because you have Joxer right up close to the camera. And what that, you feel kind of united with him in being freaked out about whether Xena is a Bacchae or not.
Then it's revealed that instead of a stake, it's a sharpened dryad bone that can kill a Bacchae. So they have to go to this like crazy graveyard to get some. And
Dryad is a tree nymph?
what?
A dryad.
It's not those harpy things?
No, they're a clearly different creatures.
Oh, I thought
even
it
though
was
they look
them.
exactly the same.
Why were they there?
Dryads have tails, and harpies are just like skeletons with wings. So see, they're different. They're so different.
So wait, the skeletons that they fight are dryad skeletons. though. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I just grouped two winged creature Skeletors together.
Don't be like that.
I'm sorry.
This is some more Harryhausen stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it works better with TJ directing because he picks these more interesting camera angles. I did really love there's a shot of the Dryad shooting into the sky and kind of shooting past you, and you see way, way small down on the ground all the people looking up at it, and it felt much more real to me than anything from Prometheus or Mortal Beloved.
Yeah. Joxer was kind of attacked in this scene by the Dryads. They like take him underground. That was pretty crazy.
That was some Evil Dead nonsense, I thought.
Totally. That was fun.
Gabrielle, I think, right, dives in after him and pulls out an arm.
Yeah.
She thinks is his.
She has the cutest scream in that moment. I just wrote cute scream.
And I love that.
Not relevant to anything.
I love that Jax's reaction is just like, they took my boots.
Yeah.
Cost 50 dinars.
I like that too.
Yeah.
That
He
seems
paid
like a lot of money.
Yeah, those were some designer boots.
Like really expensive boots.
Yeah.
Which is weird because they
dinars?
looked so stupid.
At that time.
Yeah, it was really expensive.
That's like buying like $500 pair of boots.
I'm telling you, they were designer.
While this is happening, Argo is eating Orpheus's body.
Oh yeah, right. Explain that Orpheus is on this like scarecrow body.
Yeah, they scarecrowed him.
Because again, they have to hide the fact that they're carrying around just a head.
Whoosh points out that this is a Wizard of Oz reference to the scarecrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clear, yeah.
And it's like flying monkeys. Is that what?
Oh.
Yeah, right. They tear out his insides.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah,
that is a
it's
very
kind of
scary part
violent.
of the Wizard
Yeah.
of Oz, for sure.
Well, the important part of this scene, of course, is the fact that Joxer confronts Xena about being a Bacchae, which he's certain she is. But nope, surprise, it's Gabrielle.
And she's so Xena is so like, okay, am I? No. Like she's just so like eye-rolly about it. But then we see Gabs.
I loved that once you become a Bacchae, it's just immediate. Your hair just becomes gelled, just straight away.
Yes.
She turns one way, becomes a Bacchae, and turns the other way, and her hair is gelled.
And the eyebrow pencil
Is
just
out.
goes insane.
Yeah, you gotta...
Yeah. And so she's like hissing away and it looks crazy because she's in her Gabrielle outfit. So it's like extra nuts. And now the conflict is that they have to kill Bacchus before midnight because at midnight, if they drink his blood, they become Bacchae forever.
Right.
But before that, it's like you can revert back.
But there's a conflict here because I guess Gabrielle goes off somewhere else.
What?
And Xena wants to pursue Gabrielle, not Bacchus. And that's why Orpheus gets so angry at her and says that she's prioritizing her desires over what's right.
Oh, okay.
Just like
I
he
missed
did with
that.
Eurydice somehow, because her desires were a night of sex with Eurydice.
There was line like Bacchus was using her against us.
Yes, yeah. He has the sense that Gabrielle's just bait.
Yeah.
There's a really great scene of Bacchae Gabrielle attacking them.
I love when she like scampers up the wall.
It's creepy.
That's such a horror movie
so
trope,
horror.
particularly now. It's in
Yeah.
every horror movie now. We just saw the Ouija sequel that
Yeah.
was all over there. The wall climbing, Split has a lot of wall climbing too. I actually want to put a moratorium on wall climbing. It was cool when Xena did it, but yeah, it's been played out.
Xena clearly started this?
It started it. Let's give Xena the credit it deserves. It invented horror movie wall climbing.
Well, I mean, it's later used again, and also with Gabrielle in Haunting of Amphipolis. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, the only other Halloween episode that
Is that
Xena
a
did.
Halloween episode?
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
I'd say
think
it's
of it.
even more of a Halloween episode than this one.
Yeah.
And I think the guy who plays Bacchus is in that one playing some. He was always like in makeup.
So, yeah, makes sense.
Katie, you always want Renee to be on Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yes, I'm not the only one.
Well, I mean, you're always screaming like, she'd be a great Deadite.
She would be
this is
amazing
like,
Deadite.
You know, whenever she's climbing the wall,
This is
it's
why
always
she
like her
kind of,
Deadite.
well, I had been saying that while we were watching Xena, and then in The Haunting of Amphipolis, she kind of gets to be a Deadite, and I was like, oh, my dreams have come true, all my dreams. So that was great, and then yes, she should be a Deadite. She's so good. in
Renee is having a lot of fun in this episode.
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots of gleeful hissing and like kind of like trying to bite the air a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
she's
over-exaggerated, like, vampire stuff is pretty amusing. They could tone it down a slight.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't.
We've
How
been saying
dare
about this whole
you?
episode.
How dare you?
Just a little less throwing your head around.
I mean, it's true that I don't think we're ever threatened by these creatures.
Like, she seemed to be having a lot of fun, but I do wonder how much fun she was having with those contacts on, because they looked painful as hell.
Yeah, there was no blinking happening.
She definitely said that she was not having fun with those.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think any of the Bacchae were. They
No.
all look sort of glazed.
Like, because those things just hurt like
Yeah.
a motherfucker.
So back in the club, Bacchus is getting the girls some bottle service of his blood.
Oh, nice one.
And they start drinking it, and you know that means that's bad. And Gabs has found her way there, and she's like, next. Oh no.
And he hands her the goblet. And I love that you see her like 2-inch long nails. And she cannot get a grip on this goblet. It's so funny. She's like, how do I touch this? Oh no.
And out comes the chakram, the last minute chakram save once again. Goblet
And
goes
Xena
splurge.
says she's not interested, Bacchus, because the only person she wants to trade bodily fluids with is me.
Basically. Oh, and we get another trademark TJ Lucy Lawless eye light.
Oh, yes.
A gorgeous eyelight
Gorgeous
situation.
one.
Again, I love that TJ has a love affair with Lucy Lawless's eyes. It's very happy
as
making.
do we all.
As do we all. Thank you, Tej.
Yeah, thank you. And she does an insane, like, fire breathing situation because it's, like, over an entire cauldron this time.
The club is decorated with a lot of giant grapes.
Oh, because he's Bacchus.
Because he's Bacchus.
Right.
makes
The
total
wine
sense.
in this instance is blood because they're vampires. See
It's a
how
little.
that
It's
is?
a little bit Eucharisty. I
Ooh.
just noticed.
A little bit. A little bit.
I used to think of, like, this taught me as a small what Bacchus was. So whenever he was mentioned, I would think of this guy.
I'd be like, ooh, lesbians.
No, not
Oh,
quite. I
Bacchanalia,
wish.
that sounds fun.
There's some crazy choral music over this entire climax. Like, very intense.
You said climax.
Let's talk about
The
climax.
climax.
Continue, Olivia. We're
Okay.
gonna get there.
Okay, so Bacchus helpfully goes, ha ha ha, Xena. Only a Bacchae can kill me.
What an idiot! What an idiot! What the hell? This shows you how dumb the male patriarchy is.
Yeah, not only do they announce the method by which they can be killed, they also create the Bacchae that are the only things that can kill them.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
And he still really is excited for Xena to be a Bacchae. And
Yeah.
he just was like, ha ha.
Because he believes in his masculine power
Of
to
course.
control her. He doesn't believe that as a Bacchae
This
she'd
is where
ever...
we're getting to the fun ending that I think
Yes.
is very subversive and delightful.
Okay,
Carry
go,
on.
go,
No,
go,
No,
go.
we're not
No,
at the
you
ending
were.
yet, are
Well,
we?
we're getting there.
Yeah, don't skip over
Well,
the
first
good
Xena
stuff.
does seemingly kill Bacchus. She, like, hits him and he, like, falls to the ground at
Right.
the club.
Yeah.
And he doesn't crowd surf like you might expect. He just
No.
goes splat. But then he does, like, a full on Michael Myers, except even more so, like writing himself.
Isn't it Nosferatu?
Yeah, I guess it's just you're right. That's the relevant film reference.
Just zooms up.
He just levers up.
So he goes like, okay, only Bacchai can kill me, and then Gabrielle's down next to him, and he is like,
he commands
go bite her.
Yeah, he commands
and
her.
it's just like, it's literally the next line after, only Bacchai can kill me. Hey, go bite Xena.
Go make Xena a Bacchai.
So,
he's
so
really
Gabrielle
dumb.
flies up there, and Xena, having now been told how to kill Bacchus, is like, Gabrielle, do it. So this brings me to that article that I mentioned previously. I think we were talking about Callisto. Lunatics with lethal combat skills, dark doubles, Bacchai, and soulless women in Xena Warrior Princess writes a lot about this episode, but one tiny little phrase that I enjoy about the moment that we are upon, where Gabrielle bites Xena, is described as the extended erotic climax to the episode.
That's funny. That's a
now
pun.
Here, yeah. So it is a pun. It is very much a pun. In vampire cinema, right? Anytime a vampire bites you, this is a analogy for sex. And of course, it is because vampires are representative of, non-heteronormative sex. When we're talking about two women and not like a male let's just ignore like male vampires biting women, because that's like slightly different. Anytime you kind of have this situation, it is just representative of alternative sex. Vampires became popular in Victorian times because, not that crazy stuff wasn't happening because the Victorians were crazy, but the arcing thing is that, sex was for one thing, it was for copulating, that's it. And so when you have a vampire biting a lady, that's sex. And I think this is kind of the most explicit Xena Gabrielle sex times on the show. It's really hot, you guys.
It's really hot.
Would you not say?
Extended, as your article says. It goes on. Like, Renée is just kind of like clamped to Lucy's throat. It's really, really funny. But very, very hot, yes.
Yeah. TJ said that, here's a quote, "I always try to push the limits and make things interesting, and this episode gave us a lot of opportunities to push the Xena limits of sexuality."
Absolutely.
Yeah, I read an interview with him where he said that they did a take where Lucy would just, went full orgasm in this moment. They didn't end up using it, but they wanted to at least push those boundaries.
I feel like he was, did she, in what we saw? I feel like he wasn't quite specific.
Well, I felt you saw certainly a kind of blissed out moment.
It was the third take, and he always said that she was a third take gal, so...
Third take gal.
Maybe it was that one.
Maybe.
Who knows?
It's certainly very suggestive.
Yeah.
Lots of moaning.
It would go even beyond suggestive, I think. It's pretty declarative.
It is absolutely declarative.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And so...
This is the language of horror we're talking about.
And do you feel like the entire episode has been set up for this moment to occur? It has that kind of
1000%.
inevitable amazeballness.
Yep.
So her hair is immediately gelled back.
Immediately
and
gelled.
she's a Bacchai now.
Absolutely. So what's interesting about this plan is that she is somehow able to retain her Xena autonomy, right?
Because Xena is stronger than the patriarchy, and so is
Absolutely.
Gabrielle.
And so is Gabrielle. This is what I found interesting, again, in that article. It was a interesting subversive kind of reading of this moment where you had him, telling her how to kill him, la la la.
Hey, that's Orpheus' song.
What?
La la la.
La, la, la.
And
La, la, la.
she had to become a Bacchai to defeat him. So this article posits this ending as a reading in which Xena has to work within the system in order to enact change. You can't do anything from outside the system. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
That she has to conform to, if we're in an instance, to his, in this instance, the, patriarchy, to then enact a significant change, which is murdering him.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that, if we go with your article's theory of this episode where Bacchus is the patriarchy, it's interesting that the Bacchae, who seem like these really transgressive figures of female sexuality unleashed, are working for him. They're under his control. He's saying, like, have fun, but as long as you're expressing my will. So then when Gabrielle turns Xena, which is something that Xena wants her to do, and they both rebel against him, they're using that unleashed female sexuality, but against him.
Awesome.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
I love this episode. Yeah. It's so good.
Based on what you said about that article, you could also take the meaning to be the show is the Bacchae and the network is Bacchus. And the show, they're working within the system, but trying to subvert your expectations.
And sort of, becoming autonomous, like pulling away from the system. Yeah, I think that's a really good metaphor. Like, girls just want to have fun.
They do.
They do.
That's all they really want.
I love it. I love it.
Now that Bacchus is dead, everybody transforms back into human women.
Nice village girls.
This is when the zooming is really just out of control.
Yeah.
My note is TJ chillax. It was just
is
extra.
it TJ? Is it editing? Is it?
It's all of it because the crazy that's in camera,
right?
So they filmed that shit.
Yeah.
Now I wonder, if there was some discussion about doing this more in the style of, like a werewolf transformation, like American Werewolf in London, having the stages of transformation rather than just having beginning stage and end stage and a whole lot of zooms in between. Because to me the zooms felt a little like they were covering up for the fact that in a way they didn't have as much of these sort of makeup effects.
Right.
Really,
there's no ability to have them just kind of morph back,
grow the
to
fangs.
themselves.
They don't have vamp face.
They don't have vamp face like in Buffy.
But like American Werewolf in London would be a good example.
Well,
of
it is
that
kind of like that
transition.
because they already had wolves. It's established. That's a mixed genre episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
but it just went on for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was a little bit long.
It was so long. You're just like, TJ, are you okay? Then there's the kind of, to me, sad revelation that all the Bacchae turned back into these sweet village girls who they originally had been, except for the ones that had exploded, who Xena fought and exploded, and they were just dead. Like, Xena killed these nice girls.
Yeah. I think her kill count, because of this episode, is like 54.
Oh my god.
I could be wrong.
She went on a spree this week.
Yeah. She killed a lot of girls.
So that's rough. Okay. Thanks for that, Bacchus.
Orpheus gets his body back.
That's nice.
And he's taller than what
Yeah, we
Xena
didn't really
thought.
talk about Jox or doing the
Right,
lyre.
yeah, he played the
That was
lyre.
nice for a
Orpheus did his
second.
La 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 song. The Bacchae slept for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It turned out to be useless,
Yeah.
as any male plan would be. And actually, that is really important to me, that you have the setup that Joxer, unlike Xena, isn't biased about Gabrielle, that he will stake her. If like Orpheus says to him, like, step up, this is your moment. And I love that it is not his moment.
No.
Like, he does not get to do anything especially heroic here.
No.
He's as useless as Joxer typically is. And that is such a point that the show always makes is you're kind of waiting for Joxer to be a man, and like this is not a show in
and
which
especially in
that
this
happens.
story, like no man is like showing up to
No
save.
man can kill me.
Yeah, to save the poor
I'm not a
seduced
man.
girl.
What is that line?
Yes, I am no man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we find out that somehow Orpheus gets Eurydice back, which
What?
is not mythologically accurate, but whatever. Okay,
Wait,
fine.
that's
he's
revealed?
like playing the tune.
Yeah,
Gabs
they're playing
can hear
their
it for like
tunes.
no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
What?
She's
I'm
like, what's
totally
that?
missed
It's
this.
like music just in the
Yeah.
air.
Xena just smiles to herself and says, like, Eurydice and Orpheus, they're together
no.
again. And you're
All
like,
right.
what? What?
Okay, I completely even missed that, but it doesn't matter. Next slide.
He's supposed to look over his shoulder, and then she goes back to the underworld.
Oh. Well.
Oh well.
So meanwhile, Joxer is like, hey guys, hey, so what's next? Where are we going?
Yeah, and Gabs is like, we're gonna fight Medusa next, and then explains Medusa, even though I'm pretty sure it's literally in the titles of Hercules. But whatever. And Joxer's like, oh, never mind, and then he GTFOs away, and what was that cute little moment with Xena? She's like,
well, Gabrielle says, I want to thank you for saving my life, even though that happens every episode. But this time she really wants to thank her, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And Xena's like, you just did.
Yeah. What a great way to get
sending
rid of
Joxer away. And I don't know if this episode was already aware of the, kind of anti-Joxer contingent of the fandom. But the way it does kind of play here at the end with maybe he'll come with them and be a regular feature. And they're like, phew, he's not. So that felt a little bit of a commentary.
And then the episode literally ends with Bacchus' face mwahahaing at you.
Until next time, Xena.
And as usual, there will never be a next time.
Yeah. He gets mentioned a few times, but in a joking
Buffus
way.
the Bacchae Slayer.
Yeah.
So
I loved it.
Before there was Buffy,
Xena
was killing those vampires.
Of course.
Of course. So we liked this one, huh?
I did. I mean, I certainly did.
It's good times.
Yeah.
It's, I think a lot of people find it tedious and silly.
Yeah.
But it's doing a lot of interesting things.
Absolutely.
So if you've been listening to this podcast, maybe some of what we've talked about has changed your mind.
Yeah.
It's definitely more important to have than, let's say, the giant killer.
Yes.
So we're not going to delete this one.
All right.
Yeah, next week.
It's a big week.
Oh, boy.
Big ones.
What is it?
It's Return of Callisto
Holy
and
shit.
Warrior Princess Tramp, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Together
We'll see.
or separate?
We'll see how it's going to
goes.
go.
Hopefully together. I do want to keep the ball rolling. And it's very exciting. I'm very excited to have that episode. So, until then, you can follow us on all the things.
Yeah, you can subscribe on iTunes, and also always great if you took the time to rate us and leave a review. It's always really helpful and lovely.
New listeners, if you've been enjoying the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on iTunes.
Yeah, so helpful. And then we are on Twitter at Xena Warrior Pod, and then also doing lots of, additional posts and commentary on Facebook and Tumblr at Xena Warrior Podcast.tumblr.com. Xena Warrior Podcast page on Facebook. So come find us on there for more stuff. Cool.
The power.
The passion.
The podcast.